Welcome on into the Colorado Prep Show, powered by Mile High Sports. I'm the editor-in-chief of Colorado Preps, Dan Mohrmann, and I am joined by the editor-in-chief of Mile High Sports Magazine, Doug Ottewill, because we have a little bit of a special project. Rancher Doug, how we doing?
Not bad, man. I'm excited about this one today for sure. This falls in both of our wheelhouses.
That's right. We're promoting the high school athletic standpoint, and we also get to talk a little bit of Broncos, and with a legendary Bronco. We're going to bring in former Denver Broncos cornerback Champ Bailey. He is a three-time first-team All-Pro, led the NFL in interceptions in 2006, NFL 2000s All-Decade Team, Denver Broncos 50th Anniversary Team, Ring of Famer, College Football Hall of Famer, NFL Hall of Famer. And Champ, I was going through my research, and I was disappointed to find out you were only a one-time cover subject of Mile High Sports Magazine, and we've got the editor of the magazine, and that's a bone we got to pick with Dougie. What's up with that,
Doug? I don't. Maybe Champ told me no. Maybe I did it once, and he was like, I don't want to deal with this guy anymore. I don't know.
I usually do whatever the PR department tells me. So we'll blame
Patrick Smythe is the guy we got to go after.
There you go. You know Patrick very well.
Champ, we're going to get into why you're here in a second, but for all those Denver Bronco fans out here, how's life, man? How's retirement treating you, and what's new in your world?
It's been great. It's you spend 15 years in the pros, 3 in college, 4 in high school. I mean, it turns into half your life, or more than half your life, you're playing ball. And, with my head buried into it and me pouring my soul into it, it rewarded me with the gold jacket. But, you also pick your head up out of the sand and realize you got a lot of catching up to do with the rest of the world around you to fit in and try to figure out your new niche. So it's been challenging in that way. But, one thing that's always been consistent, even when I play ball, was giving back and being around younger athletes that wanted to walk that path. And as you all know, the high school sports scene is more visible and heightened than it's ever been. And, I'm happy to sort of play a role in that arena on some level, having a kid in high school, and then also understanding that, these kids have a lot more distractions than we ever had growing up. So with that, there's a lot of misinformation and missed opportunities and just things that are around these kids that shouldn't be. And, most of it's not beneficial. So, that's always been constant. And, that'll sort of take me to most of our conversation around positive athlete that we'll get to. But, that's where I'm at, and I'm still contemplating getting into training more. I do it a little on the side, but again, it's, when you commit to something in sports, you have to be consistent and you have to be present, and it consumes you. And, there's a lot to contemplate and try to figure out what road I really want to go down.
Absolutely. And that's all part of it. And I mean, especially for a professional athlete, Doug's going to laugh because I'll tell you, I'm signing up for probably the toughest athletic challenge of my life. I'm going to run the Pikes Peak Ascent this fall.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm paying money to run up Pikes Peak.
That's crazy.
So,
good luck.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. You mentioned positive athlete. I want to dive into positive athlete. It's kind of funny how we came across it. A mutual friend of ours, Brady Kellogg, sent me an email and asked if I'd be interested in having a conversation with you about positive athlete. And the more research I did, the more I thought it came right in line with my belief of what high school athletics means, and obviously someone like you. So what's the overall mission, and really, how did you fall into this? How did you get involved?
Well, it really wasn't an accident how we connected, but, just to describe what it is first, it's a recognition platform. And more or less, we concentrate on high school kids, 9th through 12th, all sports, all genders, everything. Every student athlete at the high school level is eligible to be nominated. And basically, we have a nomination process. Any coach, administrator, AD, parent, anybody can nominate a kid 9th through 12th grade for these awards. And basically, we want to nominate kids who have high character, they've overcome some adversity, injury, whatever it may be. They're good in the community, they're great students. It's not always the kid that's scoring all the points and, winning all the matches. It's really those of high character. And, we typically recognize the ones that have the best stats on the field. And I think it gets overlooked, all the good kids and all the things that surround the game, and really just enabling the whole team to be recognized and not just the elite athletes. And I think if we could probably all name some kids we play ball with that are now great businessmen and women, in certain sectors of life. And, ultimately, no matter what, however long you play the game, whether you just play in high school or you have a 15-year career like mine, you have to hang it up at some point. So preparedness is priority. And I think this enables them to really see what's on the other side. And really what I'm alluding to is more than just a recognition platform. It's a way we're building out an app where that'll enable the kids to, enhance their profile, to then look for jobs. Because on the other side, there's corporations that value these type of assets that these kids are developing and these character traits, the soft skills, accountability, being on time, things like that are super value in the corporate world, that corporations really want to have a chance to get to these athletes. And that's what we're doing. We're putting together that pipeline, making sure we're giving all the kids the resources they need to develop their leadership skills and their character as they pursue their dreams, whether, it's in sports or outside of sports.
As an athlete in general, did you just have this natural pull? I mean, you were a high school athlete once who probably looked up to a professional in some realm. Having retired after playing at such a high level, did you just have this natural pull that you wanted to go back and help to influence kids in the same way that you were influenced?
Well, like I said, it was always there. I never stopped giving back. I've always done camps and things of that sort, but I always felt like camps and one-off appearances weren't really effective. I think they're good as a part of a bigger plan. So I feel like this is a bigger plan, because now I can focus on more than just football players. It's all athletes. And it's not, I tell people all the time, most of the people I see now are the people that I played sports with in high school that never made it to the league. People I played with in college that never made it to the league. So, they're not doing sports anymore. They're doing things that are completely outside of sports. And, those traits need to be valued and honed and shaped a lot earlier and sooner. A lot of these people didn't know what they were going to do until years later. But now we can give them access to possibilities. So it's always been here. It's just being more organized and pointed to what I really want to connect to. And this is one of the many platforms that I will utilize in order to get back.
You mentioned those traits just now, and all the people, friends that you grew up with that are doing great things in the business world or community, what have you. Obviously, you reached the mountaintop. And maybe some of those guys reach the mountaintop in a different discipline, business, what have you. But what are those traits? When you start thinking about the things that high school sports teach you, what are the traits you're most interested in facilitating through this platform?
Well, just the soft skills. I was a former teammate of mine, Lieutenant Governor in Georgia, Burt Jones, appointed me to this committee for the state. And we were tasked with the ability to go around and interview different industries, like the Gulfstreams of the world. And Hyundai, they got two plants there. Well, they got one big one, and now they're building another one. And then Kia has a big plant here. So all these different industries were having the same issues, and it was talent. So that in itself let me know, like, okay, they're having issues with talent. Well, what type of people are they hiring? It's just anybody, right? Anybody that's available who applies. So my question would always be in every meeting, why don't you hire student athletes? And they really didn't have a way to do it. And this was before I knew anything about positive athletes. So understanding that and then being introduced to it, it made sense to draw that connection. But now what do we do from here? And, you know, the things I care about developing on this platform are all the skills that they already learned. You know, how to be a great teammate, how to play your role on the team, you know, being accountable, showing up on time. As we know, that's why the NFL protects the shield and their integrity so much, is because it's so valuable. So in sports, and only way people value the outcomes, or at least respect them, is because of the integrity of the play. So that requires a lot of things to be in line. So if you're operating in an environment like that, you can operate in any environment as you develop new trades and new skills. Skills can be taught. Character and all these things, that happens over time. Accountability, it happens over time. Experience. So just understanding that in these heightened environments that these student athletes are living in, that has to be respected and honed. And that's what I care about the most about it.
That's a great backdrop for how you got involved in terms of, you know, sort of your advice to who are you hiring. You know,
Yeah.
Sports, especially in the modern day realm, there's some great things about it, the same great things that have always been great. And then there's some things that are maybe a little troublesome. You know, when we hear about scholarships or even NIL, it's always 5-star athletes that are playing football and basketball.
Yeah.
I know it's important to you to look around and say, hey, a kid that's a wrestler is someone you ought to consider. A kid that won their state cross-country meet, or a kid that just found a way to make the team in a sport that maybe we don't hear about is important. How much of that part of it, to spread it out to all the sports, to all the levels, was important to you, and how did that kind of come to be?
You know, football gets a lot of attention where I'm from, right? And some places it might be lacrosse, some places it might be basketball. But one thing that's constant across all sports is the heightened environment and the competitive nature of it. So I don't know any more demanding sports than gymnastics, like anything that women do, actually. So turns out most of our nominees are women and girls at that age, because they are the ones that are so under scrutiny and deal with more pressure than boys, even cheerleaders. I mean, it's crazy. And you guys could probably vouch for that. Like, girls are always put to the test a lot more than boys. And for some reason, you know, that's been accepted. But what comes out of that is somebody who's sharp, competitive, and understands what it takes to win. So if you want to get the best and the most talented, it will always be the student athletes, because they're learning things. Now it's just all about translating those things that they learn to real life situations.
Well, and part of that is also just learning how to multitask, right? And manage your time, and that's a big piece of it. So one thing that I really liked about what I've heard about Positive Athlete is you're nominated for a scholarship, but you don't have to win the scholarship or get the scholarship to actually get the benefits of everything the Positive Athlete has to offer. How much of that is such a vital piece of what you guys are doing, that even if you're just nominated, that you all of a sudden have resources that are going to help you?
Yeah, and that's what we need to parents and coaches and everyone around these kids to understand. Like, it's not an end game once you get nominated. That's just the beginning. And it's really just giving them the opportunity to recognize these kids and then push them in a direction that's going to help them. Like, we're here to support them. Whatever direction they go in their careers, there will be a direction. So they will have resources at their disposal. That's what I loved about it the most. There would be no nominee left out, right? I think when it's all said and done, we want every kid, whether they're an athlete or not, to be able to have these type of resources. But we got to start somewhere, right? And so we're starting with the best of the best on every campus in the country.
You know, Champ, I was thinking back. You know, you mentioned something a second ago that made me think of our friend Demaryius Thomas, and I was doing an interview with him. And at some point I said, you know, what do you want to do after you get done playing football? And he said, I want to play basketball. And it made me think, because he was such a great athlete across all sports. I mean, obviously a great football player, but ran track, played basketball, could have played Division I basketball. I know you were a multiple sport athlete. What benefit did that give you? And how much do you guys sort of favor those multiple sport athletes when you're looking through nominations and things like that?
It's funny. I'm not surprised he said that.
Yeah.
By the way, he probably could have done it because he's that kind of talent. I remember him telling me, "Yeah, man, I played in this charity softball game, and I'd never swing a bat in my life. Throw the ball over the plate, home run." I'm like, I would have struck out. I never played baseball either, so I would have struck out for sure. But he's just that kind of guy. But that means a lot because you're talking about well-rounded kids who are getting that attention to detail year-round. Because it's one thing to have a certain coach in football, but what I like is the variety of leadership that you get exposed to. The variety of different things that it takes to have a successful practice over and over again. The demands are there, but what the coaches are looking for are always a little bit different. Everybody wants to win, but how you get there, there's going to be a different philosophy. So understanding that, it just creates a mindset that it doesn't take one way. It just takes the work in between. Okay, you can have a formula, but are you going to do what it takes within that formula? So when you're exposed to that, because what it took for me to be a good basketball player, run track, play both ways, and everything helped me. Track helped me so much in football, even from a physical standpoint, because I was so honed in on myself. Like, track is such an individual sport. You have to do your part, or else, because nobody performs with you. You perform with your team as an individual. So when you have that, it makes you really hone in on your skills. It creates a more well-rounded athlete, which creates a more well-rounded professional. So I just think it's super beneficial to get a little bit of everything.
I've always had this theory that being a multi-sport athlete also helps you really learn and understand how to compete. That, you can practice all you want, but until you go up, and I mean, quick funny story, I was talking to a track athlete yesterday. He was running a 4x800 relay over the weekend, and the kid he started against was a kid who, a basketball player who would beat him in the playoffs, and that kind of gave him that, that energy and that juice to try and get him in that leg. So, in your experience as high school athlete, multi-sport college athlete, is there validity to that idea of practice and skill development is valuable, but being able to compete is equally as important?
Yeah. And I think that starts in practice, right? Like, you can't just all of a sudden show up for a game and think you're just going to compete and win. You have to learn how to win, deal with losses on a high scale, like over and over again. And how you do that in practice determines how you probably do it in the game, when the pressure's on, because it becomes second nature. So for me, everything you do starts in practice. So learning how to compete, finding out what makes you tick, drives you, gives you that edge. Those are all significant factors into winning and losing battles, which ultimately means you're successful or not. So, yeah, man, I agree. Like, that competitive nature is developed over practice after practice after practice, competing against your teammates.
And also, kind of on that point, learning to be a part of a team, whether it's an individualized sport like track or a sport like football, how vital is that just in terms of helping kids understand, how bonded they have to be as a team?
Well, that's super important because there's not one big business out here that doesn't have a big team and then smaller teams within those bigger teams. So understanding your role and what's expected of you and then exceeding and excelling at that role is everything. And that to me, I don't know any athletes that want to be pulled to the front of the room and then the coach tells them that they haven't done their part. Like, nobody wants that. So I would say there's nothing else in the world that scrutinizes people more than sports. Like, it's like you are always under a microscope. I think about all the days we watched practice film after practice film. And it was really just trying to put ourselves in a position to be excellent and have excellent outcomes. That's all it was about. So when you're in that environment, man, being able to understand your position. You understand it by going through situations over and over again, and it becomes second nature. And then that's what you're getting when you get a student athlete, somebody who's been in those high pressure situations pretty much all their lives.
You know, Champ, you talked about it earlier. You know, when you're out here, you're hyper focused on winning with the Denver Broncos and being the best at your position for that team. But over that time, were you able to cross paths with, say, somebody like a Dave Logan who won a state championship, or maybe get to talk to the kids that were being honored as state championships at halftime? Was there anything that gave you certain incentive to come back here and do what you're doing? Because obviously, you know, you're there in your hometown doing things, being involved on a day-to-day basis, but now you're coming back to Denver and doing the same thing. Was there anyone or anything that kind of gave you a great reason to come back out here?
Yeah, well, it's funny you bring up Dave Logan. I just did an event with him recently, and you know, I remember the state championships he won and all the things he was doing as a coach. All that, you know, still sticks with me. Again, like most of the people I connect with now are people I never played with or anything. They just either play sports or they're doing something that's adjacent to sports outside of the game. But so Dave Logan, funny enough, like we're talking and he's asking me about, you know, potentially working with him on one of the games or something. I don't know the details of that, so don't hold me to that. This is something we're discussing, but my point is, like, all these people that I've come across, like what he's done inspires me. I know he played ball. I know he was on the field, but now he's inspiring and teaching these young men how to win at the high school level. So I respect that. So I know being that I'm doing Positive Athlete and working with them, we're talking, it'll get back to him that we had this discussion, and then it'll further our relationship and make us closer. So those things I really do value. So bringing up Dave Logan, it's funny. That's no accident. You know, he's a guy that I definitely look up to. But even more than that, as I'm here, I'm always trying to figure out how I reach more kids, because I do understand my influence and presence being in the state of Colorado for 10 years. I get that. And I'm always about scaling whatever I'm doing, especially the talents and the wisdom that I could give back. I'm all about it. Like, I can't just be in one pocket. I got to be everywhere. There's at least 10 people in every state that knows who I am. I could probably, so I want to make that number double, but also have them welcome me and the gifts that I can bring and help their youth.
Is there something about the culture of the Broncos organization? I mean, you know, just within the last, say, 3 or 4 years, you have Peyton Manning starting the 18 to 88 Foundation. Patrick Surtain, even though he's really young and a big star in the making, he's started his own foundation, the PS2 Foundation, working with local high schools. What is it about the Broncos that makes guys like you, guys that are the top of their game, the best of the best, but here you all are coming back and working at the grassroots level? Like, why is that so important? Or is that something that's instilled while you're a Bronco?
Well, leadership matters. And when you have a team or your franchise or your bosses or anybody showing you the best ways to give back, it's going to rub off on most. And I got to give them a lot of credit. You know, the helmet giveaway, the things that they're trying to do in the community. I mean, it's inspiring, and it enables me, and at least gives confirmation for myself to say I'm doing the right things. I'm going in the right directions. I'm supporting the right things because I see people of their stature doing the same things. So for me, it's inspiring, like what PS2 is doing. I mean, what all these guys have been doing for years. And I just feel like people are starting to get a little more purposeful and organized about it, which is what it takes. Like, these kids, we all know that they're dealing with a lot more than we ever have. And, you know, for as much as we could say, yeah, they got it easier, I mean, I think it's extremely harder because there's more distractions, more misinformation, and things that put them off their game than ever before. So when I was growing up, all that mattered was football. you know. There was nothing else. So,
well, I love the fact that, you know, whether it's Positive Athlete or Peyton's new initiative or PS2's initiative, all three of you guys are really targeting people that aren't necessarily in your sport or aren't necessarily in sports at all. Just people who, you know, as you said earlier, you want to go out and have a big impact on the workforce going forward. Flash forward 10 years, you know, is a goal to have, you know, 50% of every company be athletes that come through the Positive Athlete experience and nomination process. What's kind of a long-term vision and you know, kind of the ideal, hey, this is where we want to see this go?
you know, I'm all about setting goals, and I love to get those on paper. So I won't misspeak on what our realistic goals should be without consulting my bosses, Ryan and Scott Peterson. So with them, you know, we'll have that discussion. I think we do need to put that on paper. But I'll tell you this, like, my goal is to really just involve myself in the process of building this out and really bringing more awareness around it. But having kids to come back and tell success stories about how it helped them, that's the way this is going to grow and really influence the next generation the way it should. Is really telling the success stories. But right now, it's like anything else, man. It's a Wednesday practice, right? I'm about to go review film, get ready for Thursday. That's the mentality I have about everything I do. So, you know, we can look at the goals. I think that'd probably be helpful to put something on paper. I'm sure they got some in their mind, but for me, it's just, let's just do the work and chips fall where they may.
If you can think back to when you were a high school athlete and something like this came in, I mean, you say kids face a lot of challenges today, but I think kids also know a little bit more now than what we probably would have known in our time. So, you know, how beneficial would this have been in your time to hear about an organization like this? And as a high school kid, would you have been able to grasp like the potential of what this would do to you, whether or not you won a Positive Athlete scholarship?
Yeah, I think more than anything, you would appreciate that something else was there, right? I think there was always something that we could have gone to, but the options were limited. And I think, you know, for the coaches, and I think about the ones that are there now and the ones that I had back then, just them having the resources to put in front of these kids and enable them to leverage something like this. Like, Positive Athlete is for everybody that's playing sports. It's for all of them. So it's rare that coaches take to every kid on the team in a way that's meaningful. And this kind of gives them the ability to do that now, because now they can recognize kids, not for just what they're doing on the field, but just showing up every day, having a positive attitude at the minimum. So, you know, I look at it that way. I don't know how I would have reacted. It would have just been nice to know that there was another thing that could help me if football didn't work out.
And it takes a lot for kids to learn where you start in high school may not be where you end, whether it's in college or the pros or any of that. And I want to use you as an example.
You don't.
I was looking your stuff up and I thought, man, the greatest quarterback in Denver Broncos history had a lot of rushing yards in high school.
Yeah.
Oh, and you didn't play running back until your senior year. I mean, what was that process like for you? And do you think it still translates today that, you know, you had to learn where you fit in a football or on the football field, even though you knew at some point you were going to be a top level player?
Yeah. You know, here's the funny thing. I played free safety in college, and that was basically because I was fastest on the team and they didn't want the ball to get, they didn't want the ball to get behind us. But it was also to save me from, because we weren't heavy passing back then. It was heavy run. They didn't want me to get tired just making a bunch of tackles. So I played free safety. It kind of kept me out of the way for the most part. Back then, I just did everything. And, funny enough, like, I didn't play corner until I got to college. Like, I was just an athlete. So back then, they would just put athletes at corner. It's sort of kind of what Travis Hunter is dealing with a little bit, right? Great athlete, but of course, he's shown at the highest level, one of the highest levels, that he could play both ways. So kind of a different conversation. But coming out of high school, most people would have just put him at one position. You know, he got lucky and went to Dion, and it worked out for him. But anyway, what I was getting at is I didn't play until college at corner, but I didn't learn how to play corner until I got to the league. Like really learn how to play man to man. Like I had some good coaches in college, but to really learn the techniques of man to man and different things like that, I learned that my rookie year with Dale Green, and then a little bit more my second year with Daryl and Dion. So it's funny, man. Like I became a good corner, but at the same time, I played heavy running back. Well, I ran the ball heavily in high school. And I moved to running back my senior year, midway through the season, because our star running back got hurt. And I was always a running quarterback anyway. Oh, they just put me back there. And my little brother took over, and played quarterback. So it was, it was a good senior season. I rushed for like 1,800 yards. I almost had the state record, rushing record in a game. So memorable year.
When you talk about those memories and you remember, almost play by play of your senior year in high school, what are the kind of questions that, you get to talk to a lot of kids now through this platform?
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the most interesting, some of the most common questions? What kind of advice are kids seeking from you? Obviously, they know you from where you've ascended to, but you can even today put yourself right back in their shoes when you're a senior in high school. What kind of conversations are you having with them? What are they asking you? What do they seek from you?
Well, just, it's funny. Like they all ask, how do I get good? How do you approach practice? It's a lot of like, defensive back type questions. Just there's a lot surrounding the actual game and not so much outside of the game. And I think, part of me loves that because at least I have their attention. Then we can shift those conversations as we go. But that's the thing. I want to have even more conversations outside of the game or about things outside of the game, things that are going to impact you at some point, right? Your career choice, where you get jobs, like those things will impact these kids. It's just when they're in it, I mean, I'm not going to shy away from telling them how to play corner or any defensive back position. I'm going to, tell you everything I can. We won't talk about much else because I want them to understand, to appreciate where they are, keep working hard. Because as they're doing it, they're getting the skills they need. They're getting the character, the development, the hard work, all that stuff comes naturally through doing it. So I always push them to just keep, put practice as the priority because that's what you do more than anything is practice. So when people start appreciating and really purposefully practicing at a high level, things just kind of fall into place from there.
And is that a message that you can translate over to multiple sports? Let's say, a positive athlete nominee who's a golfer comes up to you and says, hey, I don't know how many times you've swung a golf club in your life, but for me to really hone my craft, what advice can you give me there?
Yeah, same thing. It's with anything in life. Like if you want to be good at something, first of all, you understand how to do it the right way, and then you practice at doing it the right way all the time. It's really simple. It sounds so cliche, but I mean, I think sometimes people complicate things more than they should be. And it's really just put the work in. You put the work in, you will get the results.
I'm going to shift 1 second because I've said it a couple of times. I've called you, in my mind, the greatest Denver Broncos cornerback of all time. But there's a guy who's trying to make his case coming up behind you pretty quick. Even if you were to go back and look at whether it was high school film or college film, I mean, as a Denver Broncos guy, what excites you about what you're seeing from PS2 right now?
Just the consistency. I don't know. I don't have any problem with this game. And, I think a lot of people laughed at me when I said that this kid can have a Hall of Fame career before he even played it down, because it was just based off, the way he's built, his speed, his aggression. He's a good tackler. Like he loves football. and he's a technician as well. And you saw that in college. So I knew he would lean into that more, which most great pros do. You lean into your techniques more as a pro, and he's done it, man. He is just so consistent. And I think if you ask any coach what matters most, it's just consistency. You just want guys, and you know what you're gonna get from them. And every week, he's showing that he's the best in the game right now for sure.
You know, you guys have very much in common the fact that quarterbacks did not want to throw your direction. Just when you watch the modern NFL game, what's kind of your just observation? What would you be like in this game? I mean, when you played, I think up maybe toward the end, Peyton Manning's type offense started to take off around the league. But for a lot of your career, you were known as one of the best tackling cornerbacks that's ever played. What's the game look like now, and how would you fit into it now?
I mean, I think I'd be pretty much the same. I mean, I think what's different is the quarterbacks. If you look at the best quarterbacks, they all have some level of mobility and very good at it. I mean, even Mahomes, he's very shifty at times, especially on crucial plays. He just finds a way to buy time. And obviously the rules are the rules. I mean, they were getting pretty bad before I left the game. So it's always going to be geared for the offense, but you know, these guys have to deal with mobile quarterbacks. Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, these dudes run the ball like they're running backs. And to have to deal with that, with them buying time, it becomes extremely hard on the back end. So, you know, it kind of bothers me that receivers make more than corners, at least the top guys. It's weird because the pressure is always on us. You know, pressure's always on the corners to stop them. I mean, if you got to stop a guy, you should be paid more than that guy. Now, that's a whole nother conversation. But my point is, you know, it's extremely hard playing on defense with these mobile quarterbacks. And, you know, I got to see my corners fight for more of that dollar.
One more, and then we're going to circle back to positive athlete real quick. But as a Broncos alum and, you know, talking to a couple of Broncos fans, did you breathe the sigh of relief that we did to see that trajectory start to turn back upward this season?
Oh, yeah. You know, but it all starts with the quarterback. It's always about the quarterback. Like we've had solid defense for a little while. Like I think that's one thing we've always been consistent with. This pretty decent defensive play. Quarterback position has been a problem. And regardless of, you know, I don't know what happened with Russell Wilson in that situation. It's almost like he wasn't even here, right? Like you got a veteran come in like that, you expect to at least make some noise. And it was unfortunate, but I'm a big believer. Like you find your quarterbacks through the draft. I mean, you look at every top quarterback, they were drafted by their team. So, I mean, other than Matthew Stafford, everybody else, you know, they were homegrown. And it looks like we have one. You know, I had the pleasure of meeting him a couple of weeks ago, and level-headed kid, very mature. It's what you want your quarterback to look like. And, you know, I'm definitely happy that we're headed in the right direction.
Appreciate your thoughts on that. We want to circle back now. May 9th, I believe, is the scholarship deadline for Colorado, or is that nationwide for positive athlete?
May 9th is the deadline. And okay, so if anybody, parent, coach, AD, anybody that knows kids 9th through 12th, all sports, nominate kids at positiveathlete.org. It's a simple nomination process. You can tell a story about a kid in 500 words or less. And, you know, we'll go through all the, you know, the process of selecting them, who the winner is. But the good thing is every nominee will get resources on leadership, character development, job placement, as we develop this app and launch it in the fall. So looking forward to seeing those nominations roll in.
And in a couple of weeks, Positive Athlete will have a booth up at the Colorado Athletic Directors Association Conference, which is at Beaver Creek in Breckenridge. I don't know what your schedule looks like, Champ, but Doug and I are going to be there. So you're more than welcome to come hang out with us. We can probably talk to the boss man, maybe snag a hotel room with an extra one if you need the space. But we're going to be sure to be chatting with a lot of athletic directors throughout the state, get them over to that booth and get their kids nominated.
Well, I appreciate your support, your help, everything. Allow me to get the word out. Look forward to those nominations roll in, and hey, don't count me out. You never know where I'll show up.
Thanks a bunch, Chance. This was amazing just to be able to chat with you, and especially on the news that you're doing something this positive out here with Positive Athlete.
Yeah, man.
And
Just
then
get
also,
started, man. Appreciate
and
it.
June 1 is when those winners will be announced, I believe, at the Douglas County School District Legacy Campus is
Yeah.
what I want to say. Are you coming out for
Something
that,
like
that ceremony?
I think, yeah, I'll be out for that. It's June 1 or 2. I can't remember.
June, I think it's June 2nd. I think
Okay.
I always think
There
of
you
things as it's 2 days after state baseball is over. That's how my mind operates. So
Okay. Yeah, I plan
hopefully
to be
we'll
there.
see you there. All right.
All right, guys.
Well, thanks, Champ. We appreciate you.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Big thank you to Broncos Ring of Famer, NFL Hall of Famer, College Football Hall of Famer Champ Bailey. In his time, Positive Athlete is doing some great things. We're happy to. Are we partnering with them, Doug? Are we an ally? How would you describe it?
Yeah, I would say it's the start of a really great partnership. I mean, obviously with what you do with Colorado Preps, the exposure that brand has to our high school sports community here in Colorado is immense. But I think the ability to say, hey, we're working with a guy like Champ Bailey who hasn't forgot about you high school guys out in Colorado. Those kids are going to benefit greatly from his involvement and just the fact that he is taking the time to care about this state and the kids that participate in it. I think it's going to be a huge benefit for kids across the state, and hopefully Colorado Preps and Mile High Sports can help him out in that mission. And
another side benefit, it kind of forced our hand to get going on more video projects like this, which I hope we get to do soon.
Anytime Champ wants to come on, we got him.
Whether it's Champ or anyone else. But for now, positiveathlete.org. Nominate your kids. Again, resources available to all nominees, not just winners. So we can't encourage that enough. We'll be chatting about that up at CADA in a couple of weeks.
And hey, Dan, just as people wrap this up, or as we wrap this up, will we have information on this both on the site and on our socials? I believe, was there a QR code that's easy to scan? Give people an idea of how they can participate. I know Danny just showed the website, but there you go. That's what we're looking for.
Yeah, we will have that QR code up on coloradopreps.com and every once in a while we'll send out some tweets, maybe an Instagram post, just reminding people, especially as we get closer to that May 9 deadline. There's no reason that you shouldn't be nominating, especially seniors this year, but nomination process is open to kids in all classes. So freshmen, sophomores, juniors, they're all eligible. We'll be pushing that information out, especially as we reach that May 9 deadline.
Perfect.
All right. Thanks, Dougie. We'll chat with you soon. Thanks everyone for tuning in on the Colorado Prep Show, I guess is what we're going to call this, powered by Mile High Sports.